Every human being operates according to a hierarchy of unique decision-making criteria. This hierarchy is called values. The reason we're going to talk about values today is because ultimately, this section of your hierarchy is who you are, and unless something significantly tangential or traumatic occurs, will likely never change. Everything in your life is built on this, whether you like it or not. So you go through life and you have a perception that is automatically filtered by you, therefore reveals only certain options and decisions to the conscious mind, which can therefore only take a limited number of actions, which automatically produce results in the world. And then certain engine lights go off and you have feelings about it. What most people will do is they will then condemn their behavior, or they will condemn their expression of feelings because of their behavior, or they'll condemn the perceptions that led to the feelings that led to the behavior. And all I'm just saying is we could just reprogram it for next time. How many of you have walked right by an opportunity you said you wanted? You didn't even see it. So the first principle that I'd like to share with you guys is that attention is not something you're in charge of. It's captivated. A hot girl walks by, captivated, yes? And girls, a hot boy walks by, right? Captivated. It just happens to you. Your friend can be talking to you and someone walks by and you're like, sorry, what were you saying? That function of attention management is largely not consciously controllable. 99.99999% of this planet walks around believing they're in control of their own thoughts. And they walk around believing they're in control of their attention. And they walk around believing that they're making decisions and I'm a powerful person and I chose to do this thing. But in reality, if I asked you to look very carefully at the decisions you made in your life, those decisions you think you're making are actually rationalizations for behaviors you're coping with in yourself just as much as everyone else is. You have every value because your potential is in theory infinite. You just become a different person overnight. You can. What we all have is the uniquely organized hierarchy of relatively important values. Further, any value can be articulated infinite numbers of ways. So the ordering is unique according to how it's been articulated, which is through the lens of who you are. What's important is to ask the question, which values out of all possible value in the universe are intrinsically rewarding to me? Someone who loves to bake is not baking for any other reason than because they enjoy to bake. But someone who has a value on money and is good at baking might want to win a baking competition for the money. Who do you imagine would win that competition? When any individual, but most importantly a business owner, fills their day with processes, tasks, activities, responsibilities, accountabilities, or items that they own, resources under management of any kind, that they find computationally in their hierarchy of values and their identity and their ontology as a human being to be less fulfilling than what they know to be a viable alternative, your brain calculates that as a lowering of your self-worth. It calculates a lowering of your potential. It's an expressed affirmation through your behavior that you are not worth what you believe that you can produce for others. You're not worth acting on those activities and those values, those responsibilities and those accountabilities that you truly find meaning, importance, and value in. My name is Alexander Ford. I'm the CEO of Measurable Genius. We're a Calgary-based strategic consulting firm, marketing agency, and IT services provider. Our mission is to help you find your story, acquire new leads, and scale your business. And we do that by solving many different challenges, many different ways. We have sort of set out to become that agency or that business partner that you can depend on to solve challenges and to convert challenges into opportunities that other specialists, gurus, experts, and consultants have been unable to solve. We essentially want to help you be very clear in defining your results and transforming your reality to align with those results. The safest place we feel as human beings are in the position of having answers. How many of you know when you're uncertain or there's a question in your mind, you don't have a plan, there's a challenge going on, that being in a question is uncomfortable. Some of you, even when you deal with complex challenges and questions, get sick, right? And your body tightens up and you get muscle cramps and there's distortions and stuff that go on inside of you. There's feedback loops that are happening which are designed entirely to help you Identify and act according to what is most meaningful and important to you in your life. How many of you have had a significant challenge in your life, and the first thing you do is close down, your body literally concaves, right? You want to wrap yourself up in a ball and go to bed, right? And then what happens? Sugar, sex, fat, salts. You do those things when you're challenged because you're attempting to live according to some authority figure and what they want you to do, and in the process repressing what's truly meaningful to you, and therefore not wanting to go out into the world. You feel then that the world owes you something. How many of you can see that? Here's how you get out of that. You have to identify the story of meaning for you in your own life. And how you interpret data in your life is a function of the questions you've trained yourself to ask. If I am automatically having my attention move around in life, if that's automatic, and there's a function in my physiology that's governing that, then isn't it fair to say that your reality is also being filtered by that? There's lots more information available in this room than your 5 senses can detect, yes? Adults who are like, I want to be wealthy, I want to grow a business and make lots of money, but they're 63 and not profitable, fair to say they must be missing something, right? You must be missing something. It's not that they're stupid, but it's like, come on. How do you go 65 years of your life saying you want to make money and never making any? And what's the difference between the person who says he wants to make money and makes it versus the person who says he wants to make money and doesn't? Is that a fair question? If you're getting filtered data, then that means your actions are based on filtered data. Fair? So wouldn't it be like important to understand how that filter comes to be? We all go through life like at any moment we should be able to call up the entire archive of context and awareness and make the perfect fucking decision without any outside support, or a plan maybe, or a framework to attenuate our attention and intention to that which truly matters most. It's wise to realize that what you're doing today is fucking connected to this. And if I tell a story, if you tell a story of that in your own mind and you can see it clearly in your mind's eye because that story makes sense to you, you'll achieve it. If there's one fucking thing in here that your subconscious mind doesn't understand, doesn't compute, doesn't agree with, doesn't see as real, if over here you've got a plan to make $1 million and over here you've got a plan that inhibits you from making $1 million and you've not put them in context with one another consciously in your mind, your subconscious will put them in a battle to death forever. That's called anxiety. You can probably have everything you want. It's just probably out of fucking order. It just probably needs some tweaking around the edges. It just probably hasn't been put in a line. You just probably haven't seen it in context. You're probably trying to fit too much in not enough space. And if we just clear the peripheral crap, you're gonna go, oh shit, my plan's been fine this whole time. I've been anxious for no reason. It just went uninspected. I think business owners just in general do not spend enough time getting into the nitty-gritty and the specificities of their own mind. I'd love to just share with you guys that your ability to produce results in the world depends on your ability to see clearly those results in your mind. And see clearly is not parable. To see clearly means you've seen it, you've witnessed it, you've thought it through, you've followed that journey, you've taken the plan, you've sussed it out in your mind, you've niffled into all the different corners, you've discovered the challenges, the hidden roadblocks, the incongruencies of language and sense of purpose, you've aligned it with your dreams and your goals and your vision, and then you step out into the world and act confidently because that shit makes sense. Command is that. It just means you actually have certainty, presence, and enthusiasm while you're running your business. You're able to sense in on what's happening. You know what's going on. You're accurate and timely in your ability to consume, digest, and respond, etc. Your behavior is automatic in expressing what your subconscious mind has for your whole life computated as most meaningful to you in your story. I can label any item on here in any way, in any part of a story. Do you have the capability to reinterpret your story and transform your values? Yes. And then further, there's going to be a day you wake up and ask the question, what the fuck should I do today? And I'd prefer you be able to come back, pull out a piece of paper, and start here. Why do I exist again? What is meaningful and important to me? Where is that going to go and why am I trying to achieve it? How is my progress looking against my 3 to 5 year marching orders? All right, what am I doing this quarter again? Okay, 2 out of 3 things done, this is the thing. Okay, yeah, I get it, I'm back on track. That's the process. But for many business owners without a plan, without an anchored set of values, what do I do today becomes an existential crisis. And you cannot live a life in existential crisis. You cannot live a life where every question you're asked leads to an existential crisis. Is it stressful, really, to choose to do one thing, set up your life so that you have the space and the room in your calendar and, let's say, an agreed upon scope to do one thing in an amount of time that is accurate for what it's going to take to do that one thing, and there's no other things that you believe you need to do? In that thing, with no need to not be doing that thing, and that thing has enough space and enough time allocated to it for you to complete that thing, what are the probabilities of someone experiencing stress? What if there's a thing you're doing and you think you should be doing a different thing? That would be stressful. You can't do more than one thing at once, and so the reality is those 10 things are going to take a certain amount of time. The question is, in what order will those things be done? And as a business owner, delegation doesn't necessarily have to look like touching one task. It could look like building a system too. That's where I'm going with this. Maybe you are a business owner who doesn't want to plan because you feel like you never achieve the goals you set. You don't have a good track record of goal setting, and so you give up on goal setting as a concept. You set goals, you don't achieve them, then you make it about how you're a failure in life, instead of making it about the specific goal you set. And that's a critical mistake. Maybe you wouldn't produce a meaningful plan, so you may as well not do one. So maybe you're disconnected from purpose. Maybe you're not feeling connected to what it is you think you have to plan in your life. Maybe you have a sense of sequencing or an order of operations or a life roadmap where you've just got one big thing out of order with another big thing that renders your sense of certainty limp. Maybe you don't feel certain about anything in life because you just haven't zoomed out far enough to realize your life order of operations is kind of out of whack. Or maybe one of them is an injection from an authority figure. And so you set goals towards that and you don't get them, or you don't feel like you're connected to it. You can't just bring yourself to plan because you're like, why write things down? I write it down, it doesn't make me feel good. You build a strategic plan for your business, or you have a long-term goal of some kind, consciously or unconsciously. Over time, for many of you, those plans are ineffective, or you feel that pursuing your dreams or that the fulfillment of your dreams perhaps has become futile. You don't break through systemic issues. You end up locked in a certain strata, or you can't break through a glass ceiling because essentially the systems in your business aren't playing nice with one another.
The vast majority of entrepreneurs waste the vast majority of their time. And not because they're incapable or any sorts of things, but because they are misdirected and don't have a clear enough vision to align to. And if you're sitting at home listening to this, I want you just to look back at the last 2 weeks, look back at the last month, and honestly answer one simple question: is, have you been in the thick of thin things? Have you been busy rearranging the deck chairs instead of actually doing that which makes a measurable difference in your business? And if you're like 99% of entrepreneurs, you've been very busy, but not necessarily doing that which truly moves the needle and makes the difference.
Different forms of restriction are like delay. So undue delay through the system, that's a form of restriction. Capacity, that's a true restriction. Literal physical space can be a restriction. Latency of communication can be a restriction. Customer expectations can be a restriction. There's all different types of restrictions that can be placed on a system, and so our objective is to identify the systems like this so that we can look through a system and ask which of these steps is causing the greatest constraint on the system. And by eliminating constraints, what you'll find is the energy you've been over-investing and getting no results on, all of a sudden you can get results from it. Because if you're measuring a system, like if you have a pipe that's doing this much, whatever this quantity is, and you are doing effort in excess of that restraint, this effort is wasted. It literally effectively does nothing within the lens of a simple system like that. You are probably wasting lots of energy in many areas, in many processes, because of many unidentified constraints. The objective of this is to determine, from a broader perspective, is the restraint something that you can tackle within your system, or is there a different system imposing the constraint upon yours?
Just for a real simple understanding for me, so that first diagram that you drew about the wasted energy,
Yeah.
if that first constraint was budget, so we have a customer comes in and they don't want to give us a budget, we can waste an enormous amount of energy.
Totally.
Focusing on product and ideas that are absolutely outside of their budget.
And
right?
it'll be totally wasted energy. It won't even land for them.
Absolutely.
Maybe I've got a list of 7 things I want to do for this customer. I will take the highest priority, most important thing that I think should happen next to that customer, and I will only communicate within the scope of that one thing that I want to have happen until that one thing happens, and I won't move on. And for some people that's frustrating, but what you'll find is we actually get stuff done, because the alternative is this. You hop on that phone call and you talk about all 7 things and you get all 7 nowhere.
To spend a weekend with Alexander, his team, his vision, the processes that he has created, because I'm a little privy to some of those things, I guarantee, absolutely guarantee, that you will have a vision that is clearer, like perhaps by 1,000-fold, clearer, and that you will have your actions mapped out so that you are not repeating the same old spinning behaviors.
Planning is simply about mitigating the reality that you're probably going to be having a nervous breakdown at some time that something's important. And if you don't want to burn down all your progress, it's prudent then, therefore, to plan.
If you know that you're in the thick of thin things, or maybe that doesn't even resonate with you, it's like, hey, I've been really, really busy. Are you cleaning a clean? Are you spinning around something that is fundamentally done, that just needs to be let go of so that you can move on to that which has more meaning, more impact, and more significance for your business? Because Alexander will provide the structure, the plan, the evaluation, and the process to make sure that you are doing what moves the needle and not cleaning a clean, because that's silly, but people do it all the time.
There's ways to plan well, and there's ways to plan not well. It's really just a commitment to mastery that leads to a willingness to plan, because planning is a lot like exercise in that we have to take you to the boundary of your vision and expand into the unknown and problem solve ahead of time. If you show up and you ask, what are my priorities today, after rolling out of bed and looking at Facebook and your email, what you have in terms of context in the mind is fuck all plus everyone else's agenda. And so now within that shitty context, you're like, what should I do today? And you're probably going to respond to the most urgent, most emotional, most constraining perception in that time, which is going to be influenced probably by nothing you care about. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, it's not enough just to wake up every day and say, what are the 7 highest priority things I can do today? It'd be prudent to do that with context in mind.
It's about creating a framework that allows the entrepreneur to set in motion the business through habits or rhythms. I call them rhythms. Set in motion the business, allowing to run on its own without you being required to make every decision. And I think that that's one of the real key things about how Rockefeller Habits works is as soon as you start to implement the rhythms, it seems like a lot of work up front, but it ends up giving you a ton more freedom.
Working through the Rockefeller habits and applying all of the different tempos and routines and engaging in the variety of different strategic planning components has been one of the most impactful decisions we've made at Measurable Genius. Everyone can, in fact, get on the same page as a result of this process. And, you know, we're productive. We get a lot done. We move the business significantly forward because of the goals that we set every quarter. They result in us being able to transform the company and to evolve it rapidly and to know for sure that we're operating according to a well-defined plan. It's definitive and concrete. It's something you can taste and touch and feel and share and communicate with other people and refine and make progress on. So it's a lot of fun. If I prime you up with affirmation of your own story, your vision, your long-term plan, and we break that down, break that down, break that down, break that down, it is evident what you will do next. This is not guessing. This is not imaginary creative time. This is, I appreciate those things. Don't not be creative. I'm just saying if you're getting to the 90 days and you're having to work for it, you haven't been clear about this. If your 90-day goals aren't pretty much evident, we're not contextually aligned enough with the longer-term play. Does that make sense? Every morning, my intention is for you to wake up, identify who you are again, because you're different. Get connected to your values, realign yourself with your long-term, big, hairy, audacious goal in your mission statement, look at your 3 to 5 year progress, look at your 1-year incremental progress, and then look at the 90-day goals you're working on, so that when you choose the thing you're gonna do next, it's probably something that's gonna get all that done.
Before, meetings were very random, and a lot of things, because the company was very, very small, a lot of things were in my head and the other people with me. It was in their head, but we found that we were having a lot of trouble communicating that. Once we got to, I think it was about 10 employees, that what was in our head wasn't translating all that well. And so we were having lots and lots of meetings and really correcting. It was more correcting each other almost constantly. Yeah, I wouldn't have done it that way. I wouldn't have done it this way. Why didn't you tell me to do it this way, that way? So I didn't know what I didn't know, so I didn't see that it wasn't structured. And even still, I wasn't even overly frustrated. It just seemed to be the way that we had fallen into. So everything was pretty ad hoc. It was working okay because we were growing, but it required a lot of my time and the people I worked with to really micromanage ourselves and going back over things that really didn't need to be rehashed.
You should intend to prime your mind every morning, because as a leadership team, everything else in the business, by definition, is less important than what's in these boxes. If you wake up and you make decisions in a day without this in mind, consciously in mind, you're simply likely to choose lower priority activities than you could have if you looked at this paper first.
We implemented the morning huddle pretty early on into the process. And I would say, even though the huddle is kind of the last piece of what we have now for the entire system, it was probably the most important piece that we put in. One, for communication, but two, for just getting everybody on the same base, even with getting in at work at the right time. So we have our morning huddle at 8. There's 50 some odd people that are on it now. Lots are on video, but it starts at 8 and goes to about 8:07, 8:08. And it is how we touch base with all those people around the world, but also how we get our day started and pass on information.
Where most organizations fail to understand how to shift the organizational momentum is they try to change behaviors and systems instead of changing accountabilities. And they don't even recognize accountabilities to begin with. And so you'll see, if you read the Rockefeller textbook in full, that their explanation of accountability is that only one person can ever be accountable, because to take into account is to have one person be able to alert that we are in or out of bounds on the metric. I reprimand against the values of the organization instead of behavioral expectations, which is simply honoring human behavior and holding everyone in the organization compliant to aligning their expression of values with the core values of the company, which they should have because they're working for you. So it's about should and shouldn't as a company, should and shouldn't as a team, should and shouldn't as a department, should and shouldn't as a marketing organization, should and shouldn't as a sales company, should and shouldn't as a fulfilling organization. If you do something as an organization out of alignment with these values, you shouldn't. You can't really make progress unless you know your priorities. You can't really know how to fulfill your priorities if you don't know where you are right now. You need to have an awareness and an inventory and management of your precious resources, and you need to be putting those resources to work in order to fulfill your goals. Otherwise, you're just admitting to the universe that you've acquired resources that you probably shouldn't have, and they'll inevitably be taken away from you. He who does not manage his resources wisely loses his resources under management. You know, another way to say that is maybe more affirmative, which is he who manages his resources wisely accumulates more resources to manage. So, what resources do you have? Are you managing them effectively? And are you managing your business in a way that all of that comes together into essentially an executive or a CEO position of command?
It's like quitting a hard habit because you're essentially getting rid of one habit to try and institute another. And whether you believe it or not, you have bad habits and you have the opportunity to change them into good habits. And I think that they need to look around and see the people that they're working with and say, what am I doing the best for these other people that are relying on me to build this company and to make it better? And so I'd say just get started. You got to do it. It's like being an entrepreneur. You started that. So why not start making your business better too?